In the unfolding revelation of the heavenly throne room, verse 6 adds depth and dimension to the scene with its vivid imagery. Before the throne, there was a sea of glass, like crystal, and in the midst of the throne and around the throne were four living creatures full of eyes in front and in back. This passage, rich in symbolic meaning, draws us further into the awe-inspiring presence of God and the extraordinary nature of his dwelling place. The sea of glass, like crystal, presents a striking image of purity, tranquility, and perfection. In biblical literature, the sea often symbolizes chaos and disorder, yet here, the sea is transformed into a calm, clear expanse that reflects the unblemished holiness and sovereignty of God. The crystal-like appearance emphasizes the transparency and perfection of God's nature and his judgments. This sea of glass stands in contrast to the turbulent waters often depicted in Scripture, signifying that in God's presence there is no chaos or confusion, only peace and clarity. This imagery invites believers to reflect on the peace that comes from being in God's presence, a peace that transcends earthly turmoil and reflects the perfect order of his kingdom. Moreover, the introduction of four living creatures full of eyes in front and in back adds a layer of profound mystery and significance to the vision. These creatures, described in more detail in the verses that follow, are symbolic of the attributes of God and his creation. The eyes, indicative of omniscience, suggest that nothing escapes the notice of these beings, representing God's all-seeing providence. Their position, in the midst of the throne and around the throne, signifies their central role in divine worship and governance, highlighting the comprehensive coverage of God's vigilance and care over all creation. These living creatures, with their unique characteristics and positioning, serve as guardians and worshippers of God's throne, embodying the ceaseless praise and adoration due to the Almighty. Their presence reinforces the theme of continuous worship in heaven, a worship that is both a response to and a reflection of God's holy nature. For believers, these creatures exemplify the call to remain vigilant and steadfast in our worship and service to God, recognizing his omnipresence and responding to his majesty with awe and reverence. The depiction of the throne room, with its sea of glass and living creatures, challenges believers to ponder the majesty and holiness of God. It calls us to approach him with a sense of wonder and worship, acknowledging his purity, sovereignty, and the peace that his presence brings. This passage also serves as a reminder of the eternal reality that believers are invited into, a reality marked by God's unblemished holiness and the continuous praise of his creation. Furthermore, the imagery of the sea of glass like crystal speaks to the believer's hope for a future where chaos and disorder are no more, where the tranquility and clarity of God's presence pervade all things. It encourages a longing for the heavenly kingdom, where God's reign is characterized by peace and perfection. Verse 6 deepens our understanding of the divine throne room, portraying a place of unmatched holiness, order, and worship. It invites believers to reflect on the purity and peace of God's presence, the vigilant worship of the living creatures, and the hope of a future where believers will share in the unclouded vision of God's glory. As we meditate on this passage, we are encouraged to cultivate lives of holiness, worship, and anticipation of the day when we will fully experience the majesty and tranquility of God's eternal kingdom.